Hello and good afternoon. This is Kevin Mills with Action Coach Lake Houston. I want to thank you for joining our webinar this afternoon. This is a webinar that's being sponsored by JLA Realty, and Sean Vanderpool has agreed to co-sponsor this with us this week with inviting all of her business clients. And I welcome you to what we're going to cover today is around pivoting your business and looking for ways to innovate and reallocate. So let's go ahead and jump right in. A little bit about Action Coach. If you haven't heard of us before, we are the world's #1 business coaching firm. We're also the largest business coaching firm in the world with over 1,000 offices that are spread across 77 countries worldwide. We were founded back in 1993 by Brad Sugars. He is our CEO. So we've been around about a little over 25 years. And the vision that we have across every Action Coach location is to create world abundance through business re-education. So we put a very high emphasis on educating our clients and having them apply that knowledge in their business, holding them accountable, and then showing them how to apply that in the right way and at the right time. We coach literally over 15,000 businesses each week across the globe. And our goal is to increase revenue and profit, make your teams more effective and productive, and help the business owner gain a greater certainty of success in their business. So let's jump right into the topic today around innovating and reallocating. And we've broken it down into 5 phases, and we'll see that here. And you'll see the graphic on the right where everything revolves around mindset. And that's such a critical piece for all the other phases to be effective, is our mindset matters and it's important. From there, we're going to jump into understanding pivots in the business, the structure, organization. And then from that point, we'll look into the product and service pivots. How can we innovate on our product and service during this time of crisis, this time of uncertainty, where we have a much different marketplace than we did a month ago? And once we make pivots in what we're selling, we need to communicate that. So we need to update our marketing and sales strategies. So how can we pivot in that way? And then finally, phase 5 is looking at our team and the resources of the business. What changes are required there to fit and align with the pivots we've made in the rest of the business to make sure we can support those changes and leverage our teams to be effective. So let's jump right into phase 1. Mindset matters. And the quote here is so applicable that the mind has a powerful way of attracting things that are in harmony with it, good and bad. So it's important to understand, where is your mindset and what is it attracting? In a crisis, that's very difficult to manage. And it's a daily and hourly activity. So I want to take a quick poll. And so I'm going to pull this up here on your screens. And if you'll just answer this question to get us started: where is your mindset today? Are you inspired, optimistic, hopeful? Or are you starting to be concerned, anxious, and fearful? Kind of where do you fall on that spectrum right now? So if you'll put those answers in, and we'll show those here in a minute. All right, so here's the responses. Thank you for giving your input. It looks like we've got kind of a mixed mindset across the audience here, where we've got a lot of the hopeful, optimistic, but we have some concern also that's out there. And that's certainly completely understandable given the times we live in today. So let's go into what Action Coach defines as the point of power. And the point of power really helps manage our mindset and understanding where it falls at any given point in time. In a crisis, it's going to be natural for us. It's just human nature for us to fall below the point. And below the point describes us as in a place of blame, excuses, and denial. And that truly makes us powerless. That drains our energy, that drains our potential. We need to move from below the point to above the point and move into a place of being accountable, having ownership, and taking responsibility, especially as business owners, leading our team and leading our business. That will give us power and energy to make the right decisions for our business. It requires us, in order to stay above the point, to make a dedicated choice, make a decision and a commitment to move there. You're not going to feel like it. It won't be a natural emotional response. Our emotions want us to stay below the point. So it's got to be a choice, and that choice may need to be made on an hourly basis. So let's continue talking about responsibility. This is what's described as the responsibility process. And as we sort of walk through this flow chart, we'll start there at that top left in the orange circle called denial. And I think at the beginning of this crisis, a lot of us were in this state of denial. We had a lot of partial facts. We didn't know a lot of information. We had no realization how bad it might get. And so we were really in denial about dealing with the facts, even when they became true. From denial, we moved into a position of blame. So now we're starting to move into the area of known about how difficult this is going to be to get through, the negative impact it's having on our business, the tough decisions we're having to make to manage costs, and we're looking to blame someone, right? Let's blame China for creating the virus or starting the spread, whatever the case might be, or let's blame the government for deciding to have this lockdown and this social distancing mandate across the country. It's easy to fall into blame and push the responsibility elsewhere. And what that allows us to do then is move into the next circle, which is to justify. Let's justify our failure. I've got the best excuse in the world why I'm going to fail or my business is going to fail. And it's easy to sit back and allow that excuse to justify the decisions you've made or the lack of decision. But oftentimes, justify can move into a position of shame when we've realized that we are going to fail or that there is a high potential of failing. And we feel shame because we couldn't do more or we chose not to do more. And it's a self-assessment we're making of where we are in terms of our inability to control things out of our control. So we feel shame, we feel inept. From that point, it's easy to move into a position of quitting. I just want to quit, whether it's quitting on a simple activity that you're trying to do for that day, or it's a more holistic decision to quit altogether. Now, I hope and the expectation is we move through each of these. Some of them we'll skip, but a lot of us, if we do decide to go beyond these areas of mindset into obligation, we've made the decision at that point. We're putting our foot, drawing a line in the sand, and we're saying, you know what, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight to stay alive. We're going to keep the business going. I'm going to try to keep as much of my team as I can. And unfortunately, what can happen is we can fall into a mindset of obligation. And obligation language are things like, I have to, or I need to, XYZ, whatever that might be. And it's coming from a position of being obligated to do these things. We still haven't yet taken responsibility. So taking responsibility is a choice, and it's an internal choice. So now that language changed from I have to I choose to, I commit to, I select. So I choose to get up early tomorrow to do the extra work needed to plan for my business, to pivot where I need to pivot. I choose to interact with my team to come up with ideas on how we can adjust. So it starts from an internal commitment and decision on taking responsibility. And it's important to realize for your team, responsibility cannot be delegated, right? Accountability can be. In terms of the roles you've given them and the tasks and activities you're asking, but they have to take that responsibility on an individual level. So it's important to realize that, and it's got to be a choice and a decision that's made. All right, so now let's move into The identity iceberg. And if you're familiar with an iceberg, we know that what you see above the waterline is just a fraction of really what is there below the surface. So Action Coach defines the identity iceberg as everything that's above the waterline are everything we see. It's our actions, decisions, it's our behavior that leads us to the results that we get. But what is below the waterline is so important in determining what we see above the water. And those are our own skills, our beliefs, values, and our total identity, what makes us who we are. And oftentimes we allow the environment around us to influence and impact our identity and our values and beliefs. And so during this time of crisis, it's so important to realize the environment is beating us up. And we have to make sure that we pause, we reassess and affirm our beliefs and values that make up our identity. Once we're able to do that first, the actions, decisions, and behaviors will come naturally thereafter, giving us the results we want. So it's important to start below the waterline and looking inward before we look outward on the activities and actions that we need to take. And another Action Coach philosophy is around participation. And this is an important concept for you and for your team members, that as you try new things, as you take risks, which you're going to do at this time, you're going to try new steps, new processes, maybe try to deliver your product in a unique and different way. There will be failures, but the only true failure is if you don't participate, if there's not 100% participation from you and your team. And so having allowances for failures to happen so that learning can happen from that, we can grow and move on. Course correct as needed so that you don't repeat those failures, you get better from them. So now moving into phase 2. So we're moving from mindset into the business structure itself. And D. Hawk has a great quote here. An organization, no matter how well designed, is only as good as the people who live in it and work in it. That's certainly applicable today. What pivots now are required in my business structure? So how does the organization structure need to adapt to meet the changing marketplace? Do we need to simplify the organization? In some cases, do we need to downsize or change the reporting relationships? For roles that you've had defined in your business, how do those need to change? Perhaps you need to take roles in your business that were business facing, internal facing roles, administrative activities, and shift them now to be market facing activities, external focus, where now maybe they go from being a cost center to a profit center, where they're reaching out and doing some sales and marketing, contacting your client base, educating them on changes to your product and service and how they can buy from you today in this environment. Looking at cost structure and how to, again, talking about converting cost centers to profit centers, shifting overhead resources to in some way drive sales revenue right now to generate some form of cash flow. Utilize and leverage the tools and resources you have to figure out how to generate some type of revenue. Shifting from an inbound to an outbound delivery model. Perhaps you had all along you've been a business where the customers came to you. Maybe you need to do a 180 and figure out a way to take the product or service to them, and still, of course, adhering to the social distancing mandate that we have. But how can you still accommodate the needs of your marketplace? People are still buying. People still want to buy and purchase. It's just figuring out how to make that convenient and easy for them. The next bullet is around identifying the weak link. And this is really in regard to the value chain of your business, all the way from your suppliers down to delivering to your customers and invoicing. How can you assess and understand where the weak link is and focus your energy and resources to making improvements in that specific area. So it's beefing up that weak link, making improvements there so that the entire value chain is stronger because of it. Because if anything's going to break, it's going to start right there. And it really leads back to maybe it's around systems and technology, and you need to do some upgrades or training in that area in order to be more effective with maintaining contact with your clients and your customer base. That might be the weak link. And then finally, how can you re-solution and innovate on your product? So thinking about ideas and really brainstorming on things you've never attempted in the past. So what can you do now? And this is where it's a great opportunity to engage with your team. There is definitely some ideas there and potential to have some deep discussions with them on ideas to innovate in your product, innovate in how you deliver it. So continuing on with business structure, now we move into metrics. So if you're making changes in your business model, if you're making changes to your product and service and how it's delivered, most likely the activities are going to change in the business. Therefore, there needs to be a new set of metrics, a new set of KPIs, key performance indicators that need to be developed and deployed. And those need to be at the team level and for each individual role. And what I mean by role is not by person, but by predefined role, because you may have one person that's responsible for multiple roles. They need to understand the description for each one and the metrics of how you're measuring success in each of those. Also understand the right cadence of the new activities in the business and how frequently you want to measure and report on those. Is it going to be daily or weekly? A lot of your prior KPIs and scorecards may have been good enough at a monthly reporting cadence before. Now, it may make sense to pull those up to be weekly or possibly even daily reporting, so that you have a firm grasp of what's going on in the business. Also, making sure your activities are tied to outcomes. Is there a line of sight to the goals you want to accomplish, especially in the next 90 days? What do you want to accomplish? So make sure you define the outcomes and then build the activities required to achieve those outcomes. Making sure all metrics and scorecards are highly visible to your team. So communicate, make them visible, and making sure that you're providing training to your team on the new processes, the new activities, and help them understand what those measurements are and how they can achieve or even exceed the standards or the goals that you've set out there. And then finally, it's actually another polling question that I'm going to pull up. And it's really to get an idea for each of your businesses. What's the greatest challenge that you're dealing with right now? So let me pull that up. And just again, it's an anonymous poll with one answer. So just choose one of these 5 or 6 areas that is posing the greatest challenge for you right now. Is it managing your team, making them effective? Is it your own time management as the owner? Or possibly it's your systems and technology that's providing a challenge, which could be actually very common right now. Or is it just generally getting sales because you're in a lockdown, you're shut down right now? Could be cash flow management, and you're looking for ways to manage that in a better way. Or is it your profitability, just overall profits in the business? So let's see, we got some answers coming in here, and it looks like, let me show those results. Looks like sales comes in number 1, which is, that's not a big surprise right now, but systems and time come in a close second. So good. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for those responses. That's helpful. So let's move into phase 3. How can we pivot our product or service? Nelson Boswell has this quote. Here's a powerful yet simple rule. Always give people more than they expect to get. ActionCOACH calls that CNEs. Those are critical non-essentials. So if you're looking to build a luxury brand for your business, if you're looking to create raving fans that are going to refer your business through word of mouth, you've got to go above and beyond and provide them more than what they're buying. So some examples here about how can you pivot your current product and service and give your customers more than you have in the past. How can you anticipate the new needs of your customer and be proactive in understanding the changing needs of the market? Do you need to pivot your product and service to meet these new needs? Perhaps it's, you know, a lot of restaurants are going to curbside pickup now. And so it's where literally they set up a tent outside where they pull, you know, deliver the food from the kitchen straight to that tent. And there's an employee that basically has air traffic control in the parking lot, where he's directing people where to park, and he's getting their name, and he goes, picks up their food and delivers it to their window. They've already prepaid online. No one gets out of their car, and they're maintaining social distancing. It's been highly successful, and it's really helping these restaurants and small businesses stay open and keep their team employed. How is your business going to shift to being able to take the product or service to the customer, and understanding how you can do that in a safe and a consistent manner? Okay, let's jump into the next one. Continuing on products and services, additional considerations are whatever change you're making, how's that going to impact your brand reputation? Does it align with or complement your current brand? And making sure that it enhances your brand and not takes away from it. Also, important to consider, are you creating new intellectual property or a new opportunity to pursue a different target market than you ever did before? And then what education is required to communicate the changes that are happening, both to your team and to your customers? All right, moving to phase 4 around marketing. Now that we've innovated on the product, we've decided on a new way to deliver that to the customer, we've got to educate the target market on those changes. Quote here from Brian Iceberg: our jobs as marketers are to understand how the customer wants to buy and then help them do so. So how does your marketing message need to pivot? ActionCOACH has a terminology called USP, which is unique selling proposition, that is so important to help define your marketing strategy. And also having your message communicate the WIFM from your customer's perspective. WIFM is what's in it for me. So you've got to truly put yourself in the shoes of your customer and stand back and say, what's in it for me to purchase from this business? And what fear, frustration, uncertainty, or doubt do I have with buying this product or service? And if your marketing can address that, and you can also define your uniqueness, what's the secret sauce to your product? What's the special recipe that makes you different than others? Is it around the quality? Is it around customer service or the customer experience that they get? Whatever that is, this is the time to reassess and redefine your USP and your marketing message. From that, you're likely going to need to make changes in your marketing budget, and your campaigns are going to need to change. What you did in the past is probably going to look different today. You've got to be able to get the message to your clients, and there's so many options out there, from social media, you've got email blast capability, so many different options that are out there. How are you going to effectively let your customers know? And then how do you engage? How will you engage your customers and interact with the market beyond your client base? So how do you get more leads now in an environment where they haven't bought from you before, and you've got to re-educate them on the benefits they'll get from your product? And then continuing on the marketing pivot and how you change on the engagement with your audience. And each of these categories are extremely important to develop a process and a guideline for how you're going to effectively communicate and educate the marketplace. starting with the top, the most important is your existing customers. You've got to do everything you can to keep them. Then look at former customers. Go back into your database, understand who has purchased from you before, but they're no longer active. What can you do to entice them and attract them back to your brand? Look at your pipeline of leads and prospects and provides offers now that will get them in the door when you reopen, and certainly give them clear visibility to what you can do for them once you reopen. And also in terms of the pivots you've made in your products, it may end up yielding a completely new target market for you. I'll give you one example from one of the ActionCOACH clients where he owned a couple of fitness clubs. And of course, right now they're shuttered, they're shut down completely. But the business has found a way to create online videos of virtual workouts that they're sending to all of their paid members. One, it's helped them retain their membership. They discounted the membership fee during the shutdown period. And at the same time, they're actually attracting new clients through this virtual workout. And he's now realized that his target market has expanded from just being around his 10-mile radius of, or 5-mile radius of his gym, to now offering a discounted membership for virtual online workouts only, and being able to offer those nationwide to anybody across the country, because they don't need to be co-located in the same region around where the fitness club is. So he is certainly looking at that growth opportunity with a completely different target market. So as you're making changes to your product and service, is it opening an opportunity to chase after a completely new target? And then the final phase is around team and resource pivots. Simon Sinek has a good quote here. It's always the organizations that are resource constrained that come up with the good ideas to win. So it's so important to realize our resources provide us leverage, allowing us to do more with less, to serve more customers in a new and expanding way. And so understanding the different tasks and the new set of tasks that need to be done to align with the business adjustments we've made, both in product and in business structure, all those other things. How does the team need to pivot, and what new roles are required to redeploy them to cover those new tasks? Along with those new skills and processes, what training is needed to develop them and help them implement this new process? So it's important to keep in mind that your team likely has untapped talent. So look for ways to draw out those talents and you utilize them now. Use their ideas. They are going to surprise you with how much knowledge they have about your business and your product. And they probably have some tremendous ideas that you could take and implement. And then finally, around the resource reallocation, look at your systems and your processes. Maybe time for you to upgrade with the technology that you're using, especially if you're trying to communicate with your target audience. It may be a matter of looking at assessing things like putting in place Zoom in order to communicate effectively with your team from a distance, or other ways to create videos through Facebook and get training around how to do that effectively, and include best practices around how to create and post videos to advertise your business. If you're a manufacturing company, understanding inventory and how to change your supply chain from raw material to work in progress to your finished goods and managing that effectively. Don't allow this to be a time where you create obsolete, slow-moving inventory. Look for creative ways to reuse that. Now, one example that we actually have in Houston right now is there is a mattress maker based here in Houston, and their factory for making mattresses is here, and they've completely transitioned their manufacturing operations to producing masks for the medical industry. and providing those to doctors and nurses at no cost. So they've completely redeployed their team and their manufacturing equipment, but they're able to still utilize the raw materials that are used in making mattresses, and that fabric is now being used to make masks for the hospitals. So just a tremendous way to pivot and meet a need, and doing so in a very philanthropic way. And he's just really been a tremendous help to the Houston medical industry by being able to provide that. So, and then finally, looking at your finances and cash flow management. Make sure you're not just relying on the reports you get from your CPA or your accountant once a quarter. Most of those reports are point in time, or they're looking at history. A cash flow management report is a predictive metric that looks ahead. You need to be able to look 2 to 3 to 4 months ahead at what your cash flow is going to do based on your spending patterns, your spending plan, and the expectation of revenue that you're able to get right now and as we come out of this. Making sure that you're able to manage that cash flow effectively right now and have a very high cadence of review. I would say weekly, I would be reviewing and updating that report. So in summary, I want to transition to what we've got is kind of I'd call it a process map. And this is what is kind of the path to the opportunities ahead. So it allows us to look beyond the phase that we're in right now. And it just so happens this is broken out into 5 phases also. But if you start at the left where the star is, it shows where we are today is in phase 1. We're in lockdown. And above the squares there is the personal side, and then below it is the business side. And it's around mindset and activities and tasks in each of those buckets. So in the lockdown period, personally, we're taking care of our family and our personal care, certainly our finances. What is our own mindset and understanding and managing our energy as business owners? Now, shifting below that to the business, we're certainly looking after our team. We're managing the business finances. In some cases, we're mothballing equipment or maybe even closing down facilities to manage those costs. And I hope most of us are taking advantage of the government assistance that's out there through the 2 small business loan opportunities. But I would say phase 1 and 2 are 2 phases that should be blended. And while we're in lockdown, it's a great opportunity to do some training and self-development and team development. So if you look on the personal side, it's looking at doing a skills audit and looking at opportunities to brush up on areas that we want to learn and grow. Online courses, certainly getting into a coaching program right now is a great time to expand your knowledge base of how to be an effective and robust business owner. And then below the flow chart there on the business side is looking at it, maybe it's an opportunity to refresh your vision and mission. And of course, we talked about innovating the product and service, changing your marketing strategies, things of that nature. There will be a point called the warming up period, phase 3, where we will be preparing for that reopen when the lockdown ends, right? The date will be announced and the clock will start ticking. And at that point, a lot of your activities and planning will shift to preparing your team for that ramp up, preparing your marketing message, communicating the reopen date to your marketplace and your target audience, and looking for ways to differentiate in how you reopen, how you're going to create offers for your customers. So look for those opportunities. Once we reopen, we'll move into sprint mode, that phase 4. We call it sprint because I think a lot of industries right now are going to see, well, we're realizing that there's going to be a lot of pent-up demand that's going to get released all at once. And an immediate backlog is going to get created for hair salons, nail salons, movie theaters, fitness clubs, you name it. Everybody's going to want a reason to get out. Restaurants are going to be backed up and lines out the door. It's coming. how can your business take advantage of that surge? Don't let them go somewhere else. Figure out a way to accommodate that surge. So it's going to be around leading up front from the front with maximum effort from your team. Maybe it's changing your hours of operation in the first month to accommodate that surge, right? Changing your marketing so that you're able to attract as much business as you can to recover the loss in sales you've had up until this point. And then we move into phase 5, where it's really a compete and grow. And that's where we move into a phase of continuous improvement. We continue to rely upon and enhance our processes and systems. We put in place further growth plans for the business. And we look at truly creating the definition of a business according to ActionCOACH, and that's a profitable commercial enterprise that works without you. So it's having your team step up and take greater and greater responsibilities. All right, so let's jump into the next phase, and that is the path to success. And I just quickly want to walk through, this is sort of showing you 4 different phases of what we're realizing, where when the crisis started, immediately most businesses that were affected moved into this dive phase, right? Where we moved into a lockdown and sales dropped quickly, and we went from dive to survive. And we are sitting in that blue phase right now in survive. At some point, we don't know exactly when, so I wouldn't use this calendar, the restrictions will be eased, and our business can go one of 3 directions. We could have done nothing differently, no adapted business model, no pivoting, and we just go back to the status quo. And we can follow that line at the bottom where we have cash flow challenges because we've come out of this very cash poor. We haven't had the opportunity to take advantage of the surge. And you can see where it eventually leads to a business closure. The other 2 options is where you, the blue line shows where you are preparing to take, to drive through that reopening phase, but there is still tough trading because you really haven't adapted your business model. You haven't changed to meet the new needs of the changing marketplace. There will be a new normal coming out of this, and you really haven't adapted appropriately or understand the landscape of your customers in order to make changes. So you do have the opportunity to thrive, but it's still very tough, and you're really dealing in a price competitive environment. What we want to have is working with you as your business coach, helping you have a surge in demand through that drive phase and continuing to have buoyant trading because we've differentiated your product or service. We've evolved and adapted it to fit the new needs of the marketplace, and we've messaged it properly to capture and attract the attention of your customers. That allows us to truly thrive. And so now is the time to prepare for that success path. And if we use this bell curve, which you're probably familiar with seeing something like this in the past, but typically this is the life cycle of a product or a business where you have early adoption of that product. It's in a stage of innovation and early adoption, and you have a huge surge in demand, growth, and then it eventually peaks and plateaus. And then it starts to tail off because now it's become a laggard, whether it's the business or the product, and it becomes a commodity. And you're full of price shoppers, price competition is rampant, and you're starting to lose control of the business. So the idea here is now is the chance to turn that around, reinvent your business model, move it back to the front half of that bell curve so that you're able to take advantage of early adopters and that majority of the purchasing power that's out there. And then the demise curve is just another visual way of showing the categories of risk that we can fall into. So, as we think about the beginning of this crisis situation, most of us probably were in trouble, not aware. We really didn't understand the magnitude of the crisis. Now, I'd say most of us are probably in trouble, in control. Some of us may be continuing to slide down this curve where we're starting to lose control of the business. We don't have a good path. We haven't really put together a good 90-day plan. And we're starting to move into a place from losing control to eventually losing the business. So we want to avoid that. So Action Coach is really focused on helping impacted businesses move from this lost control phase back to being in trouble, realizing the risk, but being in control because they've developed a plan, they have a path forward, and they're able to take action. And that will allow us to have a turnaround. And that's truly what we want, is the opportunity to have a turnaround in the business. So if you think about the response of most businesses and most individuals when they're faced with a crisis, they respond in one of three ways. They either flight, fight, or freeze. As your business coach, our number one goal is to help you fight. We want you to fight through the crisis, help you survive now and thrive later. And we do that by developing a plan of action for your business. So to finish up, I want to just provide this opportunity to let you write down 5 ideas that you've taken from this webinar that you can go back and apply with your team, with your business in the next few days. The other thing I would encourage you to do is look at developing a 90-day plan for your business, a pivot strategy, and work with Action Coach. Let us help you do that. We have a blueprint we follow that walks us through 17 different pivot points to go through in your business to help you identify those opportunities. So to answer a question you may have is, what is business coaching? Well, it's not consulting. Business coaching is truly think of it as an apprenticeship for your business, where we grow your existing business to a point where it more than pays for the investment in a customized business education. So through that coaching program, you are getting an education how to be a great business owner. And you get to keep that knowledge forever, right? That's intellectual property that you are able to gain and own, so that once you build the first business, you can now go buy that next one and apply the same knowledge that you've gained through an Action Coach program. So how can you take action? And are you ready to take action? You know, and it's interesting that these statistics show that 85% of people who attend a workshop, or in this case, a webinar, leave and they really don't do anything with the information they heard. My goal for this webinar is for 100% of you to take action right now. And so we are offering to everyone today is a complimentary 2-hour pivot strategy session. And what we'll do is we will work with you one-on-one during that meeting, identify constraints in your business, look for those areas to make adjustments and pivots across all 5 phases that we walk through today, so that we can meet the needs of the evolving marketplace. We can identify the right target market for your business. It'll help us then look ahead beyond the crisis and see, what are your 3-year objectives for the business? What's that 3-year goal, that vision? And what would it mean to you personally to achieve that 3-year objective? And then finally, we'll look at, well, what would be the obstacles likely encountered on the way to achieving that 3-year goal? So it's a very robust, deep dive into your business that we go through at no cost and no obligation to enroll in a coaching program. It's something we're giving back to the business community. Alternatively, if you just want to schedule a 20-minute call with me, just to find out more about Action Coach and our programs, I'd love to be able to speak with you about that. So you can reach me here. My email is kevinmills@actioncoach.com. Or you can also go to our website, lakehouston.actioncoach.com, and find out more information. I would definitely like to work with you on developing a plan. and definitely the time is now to do that and prepare for the reopening event that's coming. So I will close it out for now and see if anyone has any questions. We've got a few minutes for Q&A. So let me check the chat board and see if we've got anything here to talk about.